Right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Love how fast you guys are filing in here. Hi. Welcome. Very excited. Hello, everyone in the chat. Thank you all for coming along on this long journey with us. I know I have a lot of people in here who have been here since yesterday morning, and that is really, really exciting. I am so grateful for you guys being here this whole time. Everyone, please welcome Rachel Miner, Executive Director here at RandomX and a passionate advocate for inclusion and accessibility. And welcome back, Kim Rhodes. As an actor and advocate, Kim uses her platform to champion understanding and empathy, creating safe and welcoming spaces that help inspire connection and compassion. And we are so grateful that you are back with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to jump in with just kind of quickly defining the terms diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is the variety of unique identities and experiences in a group. Equity is ensuring fair access to opportunities by addressing systemic inequalities. And inclusion is creating spaces where everyone feels valued and can fully participate. The first question that I'm going to ask you guys is just a very broad, same kind of opening question I've been asking all the panelists is what does inclusivity mean to you? I'll give you a moment to ruminate, and then I'll toss it to Rachel first.
Well, to me, it's creating a space where everyone is valued and is an active participant, or if they wish to be, and that I guess it's a multitude of perspectives that are all weighted equally from my point of view. And it's my favorite kind of space to be in, and just to where we're all learning from each other and growing because of each other's.
Yeah.
It's a long answer.
Kim?
I think I'm going to end up being the Grinch of this panel today. I'm like, oh, interesting. I feel very strongly that other people are not responsible for my emotional experience. So I don't necessarily believe that inclusivity means valuing what I have to offer, because sometimes people just don't fucking value me, and that's their right. However, inclusivity to me means space where I can fit. Where I'm in the process of designing an inclusive dance at my daughter's school, which y'all will be hit up to help fund because it's not in there. But I said space where people who have mobility assistance can be and still dance. And they're like, oh, we never occurred to us that somebody in a wheelchair might want to go to a dance. I'm like, that's inclusive to me. You don't need to want to sign up to do the tango with me, but fucking give me space to tango. So for me, inclusive means considering how people might not be able to exist in the space as it is and making alterations so that everyone can come in should they choose to.
Yeah, I love that. This is why I love having these conversations. We have so many different perspectives. That's so awesome. And tying it back into kindness and how that all fits in. I mean, kindness really does kind of tie everything together. It helps us approach diversity with curiosity and respect. And then it fuels the compassion to address those inequities and creates those safe environments that you were talking about. What are some of the challenges that you've faced when you are striving for inclusivity? And you can relate it to how inclusivity relates to you, of course. Yeah, Rachel?
I think from what I've seen, and this goes along with, I think Kim's definition better, and how you see inclusivity is also really making that space regardless of who's present at a given time or who you think will be present, because that allows people to be present of every perspective and from every walk of life. One of the issues that I can constantly run into is spaces where they say, well, if you want, we could provide a ramp, or if you need, we can do such and such, and it often requires a lot of work and attention, and we can change venues if you request, or a lot of conversations with people, they say, oh, well, people in wheelchairs, as you said, or people who are deaf or whatever, don't actually tend to come to these things, so there's no reason to have an interpreter or have a ramp or whatever. Well, they don't come to it because you never put that there, and you never made it a possibility for them to come to it. And I know I will avoid spaces where I am not actively welcomed and allowed to be anonymous, because I am a bit of an introvert. So I'm not like, I want to announce myself and have everyone change everything, etc. So yeah, so to me, that's the biggest barrier to inclusivity that I run into a lot.
Kim?
Yeah, all that. Yes. And I've experienced some of those things with you, Rachel, as an empathetic bystander. And it's like, you fucking kidding me? That's okay. All right. Like, and the things that disabled people assume, the things that we put up with that are so half-assed because it's something, right? Because it's something. And so we're like, okay, I guess. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, we've had that discussion. My contribution to this, the challenge, is the assumption that typical ideals are what atypical people are striving for. That what we really want is to be prom queen, that what we really want is to walk a runway, that what we really want is to be at a party and be able to have
walk down the aisle, whatever. Yeah.
Right? I hate the presumption that different is less, and that my goal is to meet standards that don't fucking apply to me.
Thank you. And
that's
you know what?
That's not what I'm trying to do.
Can I just jump in, because you really hit on something that I feel so strongly about as well. And it really bothers me, and I know it's often meant with good intention, but when someone says, oh, that person is not letting their disability define them. And what that means is they're letting the world tell them that they need to do X, Y, and Z to be acceptable. And their disability, not throw their disability in my face or something. But I would like a world where we can all live happily as we want to be and as we are, and for it not to be assumed that we need to fit a certain criteria or box to find happiness.
And as we define ourselves. Like, I am so amazed at the confidence that people say, oh, you're not autistic. You're not in my brain. You don't understand the bees I have to fight through when you give me your name and your phone number. Fuck you. So that is also a challenge when I say, here's who I am and what I need. And the reaction is, oh no, you're not disabled.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the trauma you see.
Right. Yeah, no, I can't tell you the number of times I've heard the same thing, or weird, again, I think coming from a place where people think it is a kind thing to say, but saying, oh, you don't look disabled, or you're too pretty to be disabled. That one really gets me. I've had doctors say that. Just the most wrong-headed, I think, ideas. But I don't blame so much the people that are using those ideas as kind of the sources that we have in society that keeps making that helping people believe that is what we need to do. I think we have to, anything we can do to make people think again about that for themselves too, for each of us to think, oh no, I can find joy, happiness, self-worth in whatever model of living that is my truth.
And people in the chat are strongly relating on the feeling, they're feeling seen by the doctor comment there.
It's funny because you put the two, for those of us who know us through the convention circuit, I would say Rachel and I are probably the two most stereotypical cinnamon rolls. And you could not find two more rabidly vicious warriors when it comes to this stuff. And so for anyone that I'm traumatizing with my cussing, I'm sorry. Mama loves you. I'm very proud of you.
I say that's why we adore you.
But you know, we touched on this in yesterday's conversation with Nisha, that kindness is not nice and pretty all the time. It's saying what is true and going to, in the long run, really, lead to well-being, I think, for all of us. And it does involve defining these things. And sometimes, you can use strong language. It can be said in a strong manner, and that can be the kind thing, I think.
Sure.
It's not always done with a smile.
I keep saying it today, but there's validity in all forms of resistance, for sure. What advice do you have for individuals who want to be allies in creating inclusive spaces, but fear making mistakes?
Ooh.
And I'll toss it to Kim first this time.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks. Well, I have been on both sides of this as a disabled person and as an aspiring ally around issues that I have not experienced. And one of the hardest things for me is to recognize the difference between pity and empathy. Because for me, pity is when I am projecting my experience onto someone else. And the reason I want to get involved is my discomfort. And what I really want to be is comfortable again. And you know what? I have given myself permission to be comfortable in this world. There are people who come on me and are like, why aren't you using your platform for X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, because I can't. And it would make me sad and uncomfortable. And my reasons would be to appease you, which is pity. Empathy is when I am able to step aside from my attachment and honor your experience and hear what you need. And so often, bless my little heart, so often what people need is for me to get out of their fucking way. Like, I am not going to stop a person of color anymore and be like, how can I help you in the grocery store? If I don't know, if I don't see it, then stay out their way. However, if I do see it, this is the question, is like, what do I do with fear? I risk being wrong, because you know what? Even if I'm wrong, I will learn how to be better. When I'm afraid of being wrong, I'm doing it for my ego. When I want to make change, the fear is worth it. Being wrong is worth it. Even if somebody screams at me because I have done the exact opposite thing that I wanted. What I wanted was to help you feel safe and supported. And what I did was make you feel judged and othered. Then I go, yeah, I did that. I absolutely did that. And now I know how not to do it next time. So I think starting with giving myself compassion and grace, because sometimes I can't do that. Sometimes I am not capable of being brave enough to put learning over my ego. I just can't. And you know what? I give myself permission for that to be okay, because it means then I try and I'll do it when I can. Because the other thing is, I'm one of those that if I fail 2 or 3 times and my ego is bruised, that's it. Everything is ruined. I will never make a good ally. I will never make people happy. And then I just quit trying.
Right.
But when I recognize the moments where I can, without attaching to the outcome, I'm not doing it for my parade. I'm doing it to create a better world. And then I do
Yeah.
the thing and I step away and I'm like, great, good, do it again.
But I think as much as each of us can hold on to the fact that we are going to get it wrong. If you're acting, you're going to get it wrong. The only thing we can do is show up and listen and learn and do better the next day, because everyone's perspective is different. So there's no way there's no amount of courses or reading or educating ourselves that is going to mean that we can get it right. We should do all those things. We should try to educate ourselves. We should ask all the questions, but there's always going to be someone who's coming from a different perspective, and we're not going to necessarily get it right for them. So I don't know, something I'm always trying to model for the staff and work with the staff on is being okay with not getting it right. Because that is the only way we're going to keep doing good in the world, is to show up and know that we'll get it more right by listening, but also be appreciative when someone says, no, you got it wrong. You didn't do right by me right now. And be appreciative that that's a chance to learn and get it slightly better next time. Yeah.
It's gonna be uncomfortable. I had an incident at a PJ party where someone came up to me afterwards and was like, you said you're open to a note. Can I give you a note? And inside, 82% of me was screaming, no, I'm exhausted. I gave everything I have. I have not, but then the rest of the math, whatever the math was, is what came out my mouth. And I said, yes. And they said, you presumed someone's gender. And until someone has told you, please don't presume their gender. And they said it respectfully. They were right. And that's when it hurts the most, for me at any rate. It hurts the most when they're right and I could have done better and I need to take the note, but my intentions and so I know enough about myself to be like, well, that hurts because they're right. And so instead of going, but I just went, yeah, you're absolutely right. I did. So sometimes it helps a lot to do the right thing, even if it doesn't feel comfortable in the moment, and trust that the rest of you is going to catch up. That the rest of you is going to say, yeah, you needed that note. Yeah, you needed to take that note. Yeah, you needed to be reminded. Great. But in the moment, it's okay that it doesn't feel like delicious, yummy candy and a hug. It feels like you're taking a note.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that something went off in our society when we started to associate being correct with being good.
Ooh, yeah.
And so many people, what I see when people won't take that criticism or won't hear how they can do better is they're desperately saying, but I'm a good person. I care about other humans. I'm trying to do good in the world. There's no way, because I wasn't looking out, I wasn't actively trying to hurt someone. So you got it wrong. And I think that that's because we falsely associate that. I can be really earnestly in a space like right now. I am sitting here in this space, honestly wanting to put good messages out there, but I can also say there are plenty of criticisms of the fact that, like, okay, there are two of us with our, lone perspectives, talking about inclusivity, and we didn't have time to get a panel where there are people from a more diversity of perspectives who can give their opinions as well. So this is, a pretty small conversation, and I could see a lot of valid criticisms coming from that. But what I think we're also here in earnest, trying to put good messages out that maybe help a few people to create spaces that are more inclusive. So I don't know. It's just saying that you can be in it for the right reasons. You can be there earnestly trying to help and still get it wrong. And I do all the time, every day. And again, I think the best thing is to me, I like to work on myself to try to be more and more comfortable so that I don't flicker out of being present and listening. even when someone's saying something that I'm getting wrong.
And I acknowledge, and I think that's the same thing you're doing. Being able to choose whether or not you take a note is privilege. So
Yeah.
I need to make sure that I am like, oh, that's if it's optional for me, then I am in a place of privilege. So check that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just shout out to you guys in the chat for having such awesome, like reflective conversations in there too. I've been like distracted trying to read what you guys are saying as well, because I think a lot of people are really relating to the kind of feeling the stigma and feeling like people but I just want you guys to know that there are a lot of people doing the good work in the world. We mentioned this in Brianna's first panel, but there are people doing the good work, I promise. Even if it doesn't always feel like it. I know that especially the medical industry is really stressful, but there are people who are currently getting great educations who are going to be great progress for the medical industry, and I'm hopeful about that. For my next question, what role does active listening and empathy play in building inclusive communities? And do you have any advice for how people could practice those skills? I'll toss it to Rachel first. I'm always going to have to put one of you on the spot.
Well, I mean, I think that both of those things are underpin creating any kind of inclusive, diverse space where, I think we have to realize that our lone perspective is not the perspective, and be willing to, and I think actively excited about learning other opinions and aware that our opinions are only going to be enhanced, that our knowledge is only going to grow by those conversations. Yeah, I don't see, and we've talked about, I don't see how you can truly be kind without those things as well, without sitting there and listening and finding out what it is that the person needs to feel supported or included. So yeah, I don't like, to me, both of those things underpin inclusivity.
Yeah.
Maddie, would you repeat the question?
Yes, I will. Don't worry, Brianna.
My brain kicked in halfway through and then didn't hear the actual rest of the question. I'm like, nope, still not getting the question from Rachel's answer either. Sorry. So I need sorry. Autism.
No, I've been there. I have to remind myself that I have to keep asking.
But okay, can I just say also, isn't it so good to be in spaces and with people where you can just say those things? And
oh my God, it's so nice. Oh God, where I don't have to like explain, where I can just be like, here's what actually, and I've started doing that more and more.
Because you make it a space where you can do that doing that, and you make it that space for other people too. To me, it's one of the things I love about being around you, but it's something I try to do as well, is just like, one thing I can do is model imperfection. I'm very good at that. But make it a space where we can all be our full selves and talk about these things.
I think you're perfect. I think learning does not equate imperfection, right? Like, right. I think of evolution does not, I love that Illusions quote. When is the sky perfect? The sky is always perfect. And it's always changing. So I think you're perfect. But I do definitely, I clock myself now, and I do it in panels where somebody's like, if you could be a supernatural monster, what would it be? And I used to have just a ticker tape that would explode in my brain for like questions and what's this and what does it get? But I would understand their intention and I'd be like, a vampire. And like struggle through that and just be like, here's what you, and now I just let it go. I'm like, I don't know, was I born that monster? Did I become that monster? Is my family also that monster? Am I living in the world of supernatural? Am I living in this? And I just like pull open the doors and I let people see, like, this is the clockwork that's behind what's happening when I finally will come out with an answer. And And actually, I don't know how the response other people have had with it, but it makes me so much less teary. Even Brianna's, I cry so much less now that I open it up and I'm just like, oh, no, here's what's going on. Instead of the repression that when a feeling comes out, ultimately I burst into tears. So,
Yeah.
point being, what the question was, how much does active listening and kindness help me?
Empathy. Yeah.
Empathy. Yeah, nailed it.
Okay. Active listening is a thing. It's a thing. It is a technique. And if you employ a technique on me, I'm going to shut down and leave you. Because the second I notice you're doing, oh, when you say da da da, I notice I feel da da da. I'm going to be like, what the fuck are you trying to do to my brain? I'm out. The anxiety will kick in. So I would prefer a person trust their instinct is to understand me. And if they don't, to just keep going, no, I still don't, no, I still don't, oh, I still don't understand. And give me the opportunity to explain myself if it's important that they understand me. And if they don't want to understand me and they say, you know what, this is disturbing to me right now. Great. Then I stop talking. Like, I don't pick up on you being uncomfortable all the time. I will continue trying to help you understand me. So for me, the empathy comes before the active listening. It is lovely when I feel understood, but I would much prefer to know you don't understand me and wish you could than you do understand me and got an A on the project of talking to Kim. Fuck yourself.
Isn't that though a false listening though? Like to me, that is and it's certainly something I've experienced, and probably something I've perpetrated, but it's when there's the idea that we should be listening. And but you're coming to it with a bunch of junk. To me, listening is getting rid of all the junk. And by junk, I just mean any preconceived, any whatnot, and actually being like, what is Kim saying? And let me learn from this. And how does that change me? And how does that give me a new perspective? And really genuinely being that, as opposed to, and that's why I think it's hard. It's not something, when you say it's something we can learn or we should try to learn, etc. I'm wary of that because it's who we are. I think what we have to do is unlearn. I think we have to unlearn all the stuff that we put in front of who we genuinely are, the curiosity that is genuinely all of us, the part of us that's not trying to watch ourselves from the outside and check if we're doing the right thing or if, how other people are perceiving us, and the part of us that is just perceiving others. And I think that is who we are naturally. I think all the other stuff is just built on top. So as much as we can get rid of it, I think we are naturally inclusive and curious and listening and learning. And that's probably, our comfortable state. At least it is for me.
Yeah, for sure. We've gotten to the portion of this panel where I'm going to invite you guys to drop your questions in the Q&A box down there. You can also leave anonymous questions. So if you do not want your name to be attached to your question, you can change that. You can leave an anonymous question in that Q&A box. If you would like to use the chat, feel free to use that as well. It's just that it moves a little bit faster and I may miss your question. So if you would like it certainly read out loud, use that Q&A box. And I love again that you guys are keeping everything like super, super reflective in the chat. I think it's awesome. You guys are super great.
It's absolutely beautiful. Can I take a minute to just say something? Because I need to acknowledge it because I will get it out of my head, which is like, I love you so much, Kim. And from the second of seeing you, I was like, I want to like jump through my screen. It's hard to stay centered and paying attention to anything and fully being here because I just want to be there with you there, hugging you. And that's all I want to say. Because I'm like, I have to get over her. Then I'm like,
I miss you a lot. I
I
miss you a
a
lot.
Anyway,
I
thank
love
you.
you.
Sorry, you guys. Wanted to take that moment.
Oh, good. Anonymous says people very rarely apologize when they learn they made a mistake by not being inclusive or when they hurt someone out of pride or shame. How do you help people do that? I don't necessarily know that you do.
I think there is a thing that helps people be able to do that, which is making people feel seen themselves and acknowledge and let them know that you know they are a good person. Can, but again, I have to say, don't do that if it's not safe. You are also perfectly allowed to build boundaries or just say fuck off and leave me alone. And that is perfectly acceptable. But if we are actively, I think when it comes to people I already care about, who I want to continue to have in my space, or like uh fellow staff members and stuff who I know are beautiful people, but maybe in that moment are having trouble acknowledging something they got wrong. I think usually the answer is to give them the truth of how wonderful they are and how many things they get right, because it gives us the space to go, oh, and I can also get things wrong. When we feel built up enough and not taken down to our scraps to where we have nothing else and we have to cling to, like, no, I'm good here too. Because I think we all need to know that someone is seeing us. So,
I want to contribute to this answer by hearkening back to something you said, which is mistaking needing to learn something with being bad or wrong. I live in a very tiny community that is very not how I lean politically. And I am a member of a group of people that meet regularly of all different walks of life. We are not people who would normally mix. And every once in a while, somebody will say something. They'll be like, oh, we can't say that anymore. Kim will get us in trouble. And I recognize that they're coming from a place of, oh, I don't want to get in trouble, instead of, oh, I've recognized this thing actually causes pain. And so would I like an apology? I would. Would I like the behavior to just fucking stop? I'd like that more. So when the behavior, and this is where I acknowledge I very much do other people's emotional legwork for them. I do work for people that I should not have to, but I do that because it's my choice now. So when they say, oh, we've got a bunch of literature up there on the rack. Nice rack, says the whole room. And then they stop doing that. And then they start saying, we've got literature up on the counter. I go up to the person afterwards and I say, thank you for saying there's literature on the counter. And then I drop it. And then little by little, they start saying counter. And then the other day, somebody said, we've got literature on the rack. And nobody fucking said, nice rack. So do I need them to all come to me and apologize for sexualizing me in the name of it's just a joke? No. Did I need to get them in trouble? No. Did I let them recognize that what they were saying is actually inherently misogynistic? Maybe they realized that, maybe they didn't. I don't fucking care. Now I don't have to listen to a bunch of people that are in a space that's supposed to be safe for me say nice rack when we're talking about literature.
there was something that when you were talking, it really hit me, because I am, and I think you know this about me, Kim, but I get really uncomfortable with false facades and emotions and things, and when people, and social lies and all of that. And it actually is a real trigger for me sometimes when people put on the facade of being humorous or light to say something that's actually clearly that they're angry about, or that they're poking at or whatever like that. And I have been known many times, I know it's a thing that I might consider it kindness, but it's not always that kind. But I will say no, let's be honest here. Like, what's actually going on? What are you actually feeling? Because I don't appreciate the laughter or the let's not just not talk about. I'm like, no, there's something bothering you. I'm okay. I will make space to have that discussion and not get upset about that. But I want to hear the truth of what you're feeling. Um, and then I also, I've called people out for another thing is if you get something wrong and it hurts someone and you're called out on that, don't laugh it off. I've heard that a lot, like with pronouns, for example. And then it's like, oh my gosh, ha ha ha, I always get that wrong. It's like, well, acknowledge the fact that that might have hurt that person. If you accidentally punch someone, it wouldn't be something you laughed about. It doesn't mean you were mean or bad or trying to hurt them. You can definitely say, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that. But I think for us to laugh is actually a way of covering our discomfort.
Yes.
And it's not actually funny. I think that's what bothers me. It's like, no, that's not the correct emotion for what you're feeling. That's not the correct reaction. And I think we need to be more genuine. Anyway, it was a point because honestly, if I heard that person say that thing of ha ha ha, Kim's here, so I would have gotten pretty mama bear.
Yeah. Well, and my point is I don't know how to get an apology when we acknowledge. So I practice compassion to myself and I focus on solution. And if somebody else can't create a space that's safe for me, I try to do it in my bubble.
Right.
And eventually, sometimes people catch on.
This is a good question. Some background. I've been a caregiver. This is for Michelle. I've been a caregiver for over 10 years. I've worked with geriatrics to pediatrics, multiple instances, different disabilities. I've also had a lot of clientele who are LGBTQIA+. They live in a very small area in rural country. What are some pointers to bridge both in a peaceful way for everyone to enjoy? They have a small pride event, but it's not broadcasted. Any tips, any tricks? I know, Kim, you live in a smaller area.
What works for me? Again, I can't give people advice. I will only share my experience. So what I try to do is teach by example. I am not going to be able to change people by telling them they're wrong. I can, however, expand their concept of what they think using pronouns means, what it looks like. Looks like saying them. I had a long conversation with someone that I love very much, but is really entrenched in old ways of doing things. And I said, well, they're going to da-da-da. And the person I was talking to said, well, she was going to da-da-da. And I said, I understand, but they da-da-da-da-da. And we went back and forth 2 or 3 times. And finally, the person I was talking to said, well, I'll make sure they know how to do that then. And I was like, I wanted to be like, da, 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 because that's the other thing I do is I don't rub it in once I've won. I don't go, see, now was that very difficult? Because I just want to be like, it's not that hard. I also model making mistakes. I model going, oh yeah, I did not think about that. Cool. And then I do better so that I help people see that learning is not necessarily a painful process. And I teach we had a situation where we were talking about pronouns and of course, all of the white cis dudes were saying, it doesn't matter. And I kept my mouth shut until finally one of them said, Kim, you haven't chimed in on this. And I said, well, it's been my experience that when someone tells me something that matters to me doesn't matter because they're already included in it and I'm not, it's kind of hurtful. And these white men responded by saying, oh, I guess you've given something us to think is something for us to think about.
Right.
So if I'd opened my mouth at the beginning of the argument and told them they were all being asswipes, I doubt I would have gotten any open minds. If I waited until I was invited and I walked in with my blankie and showed them how I do at PJ Party, sometimes they're like, oh, that looks intriguing. Oh, maybe we'll try that.
I'll say with these things, the best place to come from is a place of listening, is hearing where they're coming from, where their hangups are, letting them speak and giving them space to feel they're not being invalidated as a human being themselves. Because if you start from that place, you're not going to get anywhere. But I will say that with a caveat, which is you need to protect yourself in the equation as well. And your own emotional state, etc. Like you need to kind of be monitoring that meter of like, I am feeling so bad from this conversation. It is not like I can't keep giving this person space because I'm being crushed. And you have to then just at that point extract yourself. By whatever means, protect yourself first, I think. But if you're feeling strong and feeling protected, then I think the way in a lot of times is spending some time listening, hear the person out, and then, as Kim said, give your perspective. I try to use phrasing like, well, I had a similar thing, but then I learned blah. And I think storytelling really does help. I know specifically with pronouns, one of the conversations I've had with people too is, yes, but like perspective shift. If you have the chance, I understand your problem from an English language standpoint and it not being whatever easy to or correct grammatically or whatever their thing that I let them vent about. But for me, I come from a place of, if it's going to make someone feel better and happier and seen, then why wouldn't I? And I think the thing that I try to remember is I've talked to so many people who've been through such difficult times, who weren't acknowledged at home, etc. And I try to tell those stories. I don't want to get into triggering stuff, but I try to tell some of those stories. And of course, anytime you misuse their pronoun, that's going to carry the weight of all that pain and trauma that they've already experienced. So why do that? Why would we? And that's often like, but again, I keep trying to bring it back to, this is what I've experienced, this is what I've heard, this is what the conclusion I came to, and not say, hey, you have to come to that conclusion too.
There's also, I think I have also, as I'm like, Grinch, angry table flippy Kim is also coming back in, because I think we're talking right now about day-to-day living with rational people. There are also things where I remember I was involved in something and somebody needed to address an authority figure who was armed. And I said, I'm going to go, I'll go do that. And somebody was like, no, why are you going to ask? This is the person with the question. I was like, because I'm not afraid of dying. And then I went. So every once in a while, just drop a little bit of, why are you at the LGBT? Why are you in front of the Pride Parade? You're not gay. Because I probably won't get hit with a water cannon.
Right.
Now, am I prone to hyperbole? Absolutely. Is this shit that people besides me have to deal with that I don't worry about? Yes. Yes. So every once in a while, I like to remind fellow people of privilege, because there's this assumption that I share a privilege with you, that I'm cool with it, that I'm cool with people who don't have that privilege. So every once in a while, I just like to drop in a little bit of, because I probably won't get shot.
Yeah.
and then go do the thing. And it's just enough. I don't wait for the reaction. I don't wait for the but every once in a while, I want to just be like, I just want to be clear that their experience is not your experience right now. Cool.
Yeah.
Like every once in a while, I get a little bit, and children are killing themselves.
Right.
For your comfort.
Right.
But then the trick is to jet before it becomes a fight.
Right.
I just drop it. It's like farting under a blanket. I just drop it and run.
No,
well, as the person of color on the front lines of the protests, I really appreciate people like you. So
no, I do think it's important, but I think I will say from a self-care point of view, and self-care is crucial because we cannot be there continuing to have any of these conversations and doing any of these things if we don't look out for our own well-being. And I know I monitor, I have that meter that I'm looking at. And there are times like I am at an exhaustion point in the day, or I've had enough things I'm dealing with. And so someone's going to say something that offends me, and I am going to smile and turn away and let them go about their day and not try to make the world better in that moment. And there are other times where I go, I have the strength right now and I have the reserve. So I am going to be the one to have the hard conversation.
Going in. I'm going in.
Right. That's right. But I think I really, really cannot stress that enough that each of us has to do that. We have to monitor. It is not a blanket handling.
yeah, sure. We have about 3 minutes left, so I'm going to ask this last question from the chat here, which is a really good one. How do you find a balance between being inclusive for others and not putting your own needs on the back burner? That's a pretty good way to end it, I think.
Don't. Just I'm learning. It's like I am the one who never was still when I was balancing on the teeter-totter. I'm just like back, oh, too much. What? Oh, I'm bleeding. That was too much, too far, I think surrendering my attachment to achieving balance and instead being in the moment and just being like, well, I've learned from mistakes in the past. I've learned from being uncomfortable in the past. I'm going to try this. I'm going to bring in what I know and just keep trying. But I don't balance because some days I have much more reserves. Some days I have nothing. I think for me, it's just staying in the moment and trusting myself and my heart.
I love it. I'll say I don't. So you're saying like the question is saying between inclusive spaces and self-care?
Yeah, I think they're looking for advice on how to balance. They said being as inclusive as possible for others and not putting your own needs on the back burner.
I will say that I actually find my needs and really coming from a place of inclusivity and so forth to align in that I am actually happiest when I get out of my own way, when I am not thinking about the Rachel ego thing of like whether people will like me or not and whatever. Like that's all stress and anxiety and not feeling authentic, not feeling good myself. Whereas like when I'm in that space of listening and learning and being open and loving meeting people and loving hearing new perspectives and all of that, that actually feels much more regenerative and healthy and everything for me. I just think that also inclusive space includes being honest yourself and having honest exchanges. So it's not inclusive space does not mean or being inclusive does not mean denying like, oh, but I need to pee right now, so can you give me a second or whatever those things are. I think that actually adds to inclusivity because it makes a safe space for other people to say the same. Or like I think anyone on staff knows in meetings I am perfectly comfortable saying like, oh, my pain's spiking right now, I have to go, I'll be back because I'm not really listening well or whatever it is. I think my hope at least is that by being truly authentically me and not being afraid to be me, I make it a space that's safe for other people to do the same.
That's good.
Does that make
I
sense?
love that, because what you're doing is you are also dismantling the idea that being inclusive means you have to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And what you're pointing out, I think, is really, really true, which is they aren't mutually exclusive. That by being inclusive of everyone, including myself,
Yeah.
we form a foundation of lovely things. It isn't at the expense of, okay, fine, I guess I won't have what I want. It's finding a way for everyone to get what they want
Yeah.
without sacrificing ideals.
Thank you. Thank you for articulating it better, but yeah,
Well, thank
that's
you
how I
both
see it.
for doing this. I am so, so grateful to you guys. So grateful for everyone in the chat for being so engaged. And I appreciate everyone sharing your stories in the chat as well. I want to acknowledge that we do see and we hear them. We just unfortunately could not get to all the questions today. So Kim, you might have to come back in the future.
Okay, yes, please.
If you are coming to our goodbye ceremony, we're going to reconvene at 4 p.m. So hop on onto the next link. And for Rachel and Kim, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.